content of this channel is for mature audiences. Parental discretion is advised. You're tuned in to the Green Gorilla channel. Please make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell notification button. And please, feel free to share the video. Thank you. What's good, y'all? I'm GG, and you know where you're tuned in. It's the Green Gorilla channel. You know what I do, and you know why I do it, so I just want to thank all the members of the Green Gorilla channel before I keep it pushing. I want to give a shout out to all the people who helped me to keep this thing going. So let's take care of that. I want to give a shout out to Antonio Feria, Omni Americana, Cameron 87, Deshaun Nolly, Brian Peaks, Mr. Lumeth, Michael Ross, Nelso, Apex Prowler, Kareen Henry, Doc LaRock, Julius Ferguson, B. Hillfire, Jay Charles, Mark Hope, Lee Ways, Jeffrey Speed, The Nameless Protagonist, The Face, Raiz Muajid, Mark Swift, Show Me, Black Dog, Odd College, Raphael Brown, Deanne, Donald Watts, Barry Little, Ryan Jackson, HipHop.catv, Coach DC, The Remedy, Kashif Caldwell, Infamous Chillin', I Am Black Man, Nichita, True King 337, Mr. Blue Collar, Barnolas, Kyle J. Sura, I'm Just Jules, The Book of Ronin, Av Media 83, Gemini Getting Knowledge, Brian McMurray, TD Hip Hop Media, Drew Main, Shop Talk Live, Mr. Heat, Afro Analyst, Isa Abdul Zahir, ML Law, Charles Rogers, Universal 178. Jumped on me, man. It jumped on me. It's all to the good. Let me keep this pushing. Sir Anthony, MLR, Charles Rogers, Universal 178, Blacksword 404, Rashid Barnes, Aaron Smith, DH, C-Truth the Revelator, Gold Professor, Black Pill Ned Stark, Arthur Unknown, Dr. Tiasan Johnson, Brian Williams, Kalon Chakala, Ricky Dawson, Cedric Bowman, True 7360, BK Born Shahid, James Washington, Hostile Adept, Seven Coast Dojo, W. Pierre 1, Roguish the Billmonger, iCare, BGS Ivmore, Marvin Battle Jr., Anu 219, Presur Prisoner, Taz, Kwaku 217, S. Haywood, Dragon 59, Supreme Ivmore, Adrian Hicks, Jay Bailey, Mr. Michi, Mo Mal, William Ruffin, and Asangwa. Shout out to y'all, man. Thank you so much for supporting the Green Gorilla channel and helping me to keep things going. I appreciate all your help and support. Y'all deserve a round of applause. Thank you, thank you. I appreciate all your love, your help, and your support for the short tenure that I've been on this mission, this channel. So thank y'all, man. Appreciate y'all, man. Y'all get my honors. So anyway, you know what I've been doing. I've been, covering the firing line debate. And so I just want to get right into it. I don't want to waste too much of your time. I just want to get this over with so I can start with the new content that I have. So let's look at the rest of the debate. I'll fill you in on where we left off, and then I'll react as we go along. So let's get to it.
The women's movement has accomplished certain goals encouraged by sensible people, and yet at the same time it is a disaster.
I cannot take the women's movement for equality as a joke. It has been perhaps the most life-affirming, life-opening development of modern democracy.
30 years ago, Betty Friedan launched the women's movement with a feminine mystique at the same time that Lyndon Johnson launched the Great Society. 30 years later, we can look back and say that both the women's movement and the Great Society were spectacular disasters.
I agree with you, Ariana, that in point of fact, certain elements in the women's movement have gone too far, and there has been a kind of denigration of the role of woman and mother. I agree with that. But feminism at its best is all about options.
It's just crazy. All of us have differing views. We believe in children. I myself am a mother. I believe in giving my children rights and opportunities, and that's the critical point. I want my daughter as well as my son to have equal opportunity to advance in this society.
All right, thank you very much. Mr. Buckley and Judge Burstein, it's your chance to interrogate each other, and Mr. Buckley starts.
Your Honor.
Now, before I even go any farther, I don't have a problem with equality of opportunity for women. If they can do the job, fine. If they want the job and they merit the position, fine. But the only problem I have is with a culture in which women are able to take on all of the boons associated with social and political equality, but they never have to take on any of the burdens associated with it. They want to be able to advance along the same track as men, but they want to maintain the same kinds of privileges traditionally granted to women. They want the option to do either or, and sometimes both and. But you can't just be for distributive justice, because this is what this is about. Distributive justice, being able to share into power and resources, but they don't want to take on the same kind of culpability associated with retributive justice. That's what I have a problem with. Okay? So you can't just want distributive justice and then at the same time don't want any retributive justice. That's inconsistent. You got to have it consistent. You have to. That's just my viewpoint on it. But let's push forward.
She was a judge until quite recently.
And a fair one at that.
Intending to pursue the question of who speaks for the movement that some people honor as begun by Betty Friedan, dishonors having gone in the wrong direction, as Mrs. Huffington has said. Let me ask you to comment on three statements made by leaders of the movement. Deborah Lewis, president of the National Women's Studies Association, said, quote, according to the last March of Dimes report, domestic violence against women, pregnant women, is now responsible for more birth defects than all other causes combined. Asked to comment on that, the head of the Children's Boston Hospital said that although severe battery may occasionally cause miscarriage, he'd never once heard of battery as a significant cause of birth defects.
Well,
We just were sorry about that lapse.
No. What I want to say is that people make statements that sometimes can't be supported.
Okay.
I, for example, remember, Phyllis Schlafly saying that domestic violence shelters were R&R for irritated housewives.
And what did Hitler say? I mean, we discussing statements by people we don't approve of?
No, I'm simply saying to you that there are people who make statements.
Well, yeah, but I'm talking about representatives of the movement. Now, you heard about the great Super Bowl scoop in which it was maintained that 40% more women will be battered on the day of the Super Bowl than any other day in the year. This was a statement that alarmed a lot of people, including football enthusiasts. So people monitored movements to hospitals and so on, and it was found that there was no difference whatsoever. Yet that statement was made by that statement was made and is very widely available in the literature. Does that embarrass you? Well, obviously it does. Yeah, okay.
No, it doesn't embarrass me. The people make mistaken statements.
Whoa. Let me stop this. People make mistaken statements. As far as I'm concerned, man, that's BS. These women who are fabricating these canards, they know what they're doing. They're trying to drum up hysteria associated with men and violence. This is what they want to do. And continuously they do it, and they don't tell the full truth. And the women who could speak out against it and tell the truth about it, they never say anything. They allow the canard to grow legs and to sprout. and to flourish. They allow these misconceptions, these misstatements to gain a life of their own. I recently, it couldn't have been more than 2 years ago, heard the same argument about the Super Bowl again. These things keep resurfacing. And do you hear any women in the movement coming out and saying, that's wrong? That's not fair to men. We shouldn't be saying these kinds of things. I don't hear it. That's problematic to me because it just reinforces the stereotype about men that they're sexist, rapist, abusers. But, you know, and also what I find problematic is that there are all these battered women's shelters as if battering is something that only men do to women, like women don't batter men. They don't strike, slap, kick, punch, bite, burn, shoot, hit with cars, snip off penises, pour hot grits, hot water. Like, they don't do that. They do the same things that men do with the same frequency and intensity as men. The only thing that differentiates between men and women is that men are stronger. And oftentimes when these fights take place, and I've demonstrated over time that the more damage is done physically to women when men and women are fighting each other, when they engage in what is called reciprocal partner violence or bivalent violence. That's when most of the damage is done to women. And women initiate it just as much, if not more, than men. But yet we want to only talk about violence against women. And that's the problem I have with it. Let me keep pushing.
On both sides of every issue seem to me really terribly irrelevant to the discourse that we're engaged in at this moment.
And then she says it's irrelevant to the discourse. Irrelevant to who? It's relevant to men who have to suffer allegations and who have to suffer from the stigmatization. That's a problem. But let me keep pushing.
We are for or against a movement according to who is leading the movement.
But who made that statement?
If Mr. X is leading the movement and we don't think he's doing a good job, then our views of the movement and stuff are affected. Gloria Steinem says, quotes, "In this country alone, about 150,000 females die of anorexia each year." So a clinician is asked about that. And one of them says, well, he'd had 1,400 patients that she has treated in 10 years. 4 have died of anorexia and have died who had anorexia, and they committed suicide.
Is that a question?
No, this is a part of the compilation which I'm asking
Bill, you know
Judge
perfectly
Bernstein
well. If I were to take some of the statements that you've made from God and Man at Yale, or any of the mystery books, which I've enjoyed a great deal, I must say, that you've written.
It's very important for you to understand one thing about the dialogue that's taking place here in this forum. These people are elite white people, and they run in the same circles. They're cool like that. They're close like that. And they might disagree with certain points, but they're running the discourse. They know each other. Betty Friedan and Bill Buckley have known each other since childhood. But keep that in mind. It's important for you to know that.
I'm sure you'd be embarrassed also.
Well,
my point is that they are hardly representative of your of. And I think it's ridiculous for you to find 3 statements, one of which is ostensibly from an unnamed person who has now become a leader of the movement.
A movement
and say that this should doom anybody's respect.
Karen, a movement is known by its spokespeople.
You know, we're going to convert you, Bill. Before he's through, he's going to begin to think that it's euphemist. You know?
If it is understood in the public perspective as a movement that is dominated, as has been charged here by Professor Fox-Genovese, by people who are taking it in a direction that is not congruent with its original purposes. This as much happened in some people's position with the civil rights movement. Does quotas define the civil rights movement? Well, there are a lot of people who don't think so. But to the extent that people who dominate the megaphones from that movement say that it does, we have to ask, do they speak from authority?
Look, the women's movement is rooted in women's lives. I think that's the most important thing we have to remember. And the fact that at any particular time some phrase or some statistic becomes bandied about, either correctly or incorrectly, should not for 1 minute incline us to misunderstand the power of this movement. I can't underline it enough.
Man, she's speaking about women, what's good for them. Anytime these kind of statements become bandied about, they reinforce policy that works to the disadvantage of men. Now, they don't care because they don't have to deal with the experiences that men have to deal with. All they're worried about is themselves. Now, you have to correct what is incorrect because it's going to have an adverse impact on people's lives, and it's especially having an impact on black men's lives because dung rolls downhill. These kind of misconceptions have now become popular parlance in the black community. That's a problem. I do have a problem with that. But let me keep pushing.
The truth of the matter is that in every group, every organized activity of humankind, there are excesses. That's just the nature of human beings. But the reality is that what women strive for, which is to be full human beings, to be full participants in our society, that striving is going to go on no matter, who speaks at any particular moment.
Okay,
that striving will continue and ultimately triumph.
Don't go away. Here's your chance
going.
to ask a question to Mr. Buckley.
I'm kind of fascinated by your statement that you grew up in a home in which it would have been inconceivable that women be not full participants. But I think you must be aware that for long periods of time, our laws, in fact, did exclude women from participation.
And black folks. And also white men. Like, it's important for people to understand. White men, all white men, did not have the right to vote at the inception of this country. They did not. If anybody can figure out, because I can't recall, I can look it up real quick. Let me look this up. When did all men get the right to vote in the U.S.? When did all men get the right to vote in the U.S.? Let me look it up, man, because it ain't coming out and telling me. Okay, in 1776, only people who owned land could vote. Okay? And I think it wasn't until, when was it? 1790. Free white immigrants can become naturalized citizens. And, 1848, citizenship granted, but voting denied. Okay, 1856 was the day or the date in which the vote was expanded to all white men. 1856. And it wasn't too much shortly thereafter that women got the right to vote. So what are we talking about? Like, everybody has not been an equal participant in this society. But to make it all about you and to talk about how you were left out and not to acknowledge that others were also left out, it's narcissistic to me. But, it is what it is. Let me keep pushing.
In a number of things, in their own property and management of that property, and their management of their children, in the custodianship of their children. Do you think really that none of the efforts made legislatively as a function of women's gaining their voice and having presence in legislative assemblies and in the political arena are bad?
I don't think that, but I do think that it has been an evolving situation. i.e. perspectives do change, and certain things that were opportunities that weren't open to women back when my sister worked for Betty Friedan at the Smith newspaper have opened up. But I'm saying that the evolution has gone so far as to cause a destruction and to contaminate the movement itself. I would like to see it under the circumstances renewed, by beginning with disavowals of people who say indefensible things.
Man, all I can do is give him a shout out for that. That's all I can do. I give him a bomb for that. Just come out and disavow, denounce those people who make those kinds of statements. That's all we desire. Stop drumming up hysteria and victimization related to yourself as it pertains to domestic violence and rape and sexual assault. Stop it. But nobody wants to tell the truth about sexual assault, sexual misconduct, rape, because it happens to men as well. Nobody wants to talk about the DV that happens to men. It's just overlooked. It's self-indulgent and it's solipsistic, and it needs to stop. That's what people, this is what they're saying is disastrous, the excesses. Now, it may work for women as it pertains to distributive justice, but it's creating retributive justice problems for men. That's a problem. It needs to be identified and rectified. But, okay, whatever the case may be. Shout out to Rasheed Barnes for the Cash App, and shout out to Mr. Heat for the support. Thank y'all for the support. Let me keep pushing.
Well, are you prepared to do the same thing for people who are
sure.
on your side?
Absolutely. I do it all the time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, then I'll tell you what, I'll make you a deal. I'm prepared to say that something's indefensible, but that doesn't in any way shake my absolute resolve to continue to struggle for the interests of women. Of course, I also struggle for the interests of men, because that old labor song says.
Well, what do you want?
See, this is the thing that confuses me. So men oftentimes are in conversation with women who are feminists, but they get shut down. And they also get told that they're working for our interests. Like feminism is not anti-male. But how can it not be anti-male or misandrist when they continuously propagate these canards? They don't ever disavow these canards. I mean, she's saying she will, but they don't do this. The fact that DV in and of itself is something that's monopolized by women speaks to the fact that they don't really care about anybody else but their own pain and suffering. They're not the only people that suffer. They're not the only people with emotions. They're not the only people in pain. Let me keep pushing.
With the rising of the women is the raising of the race.
She gets another question.
So you're still on the attack.
Oh, what do I want as a question? I'm sorry, you asked me back a question. I thought the question, I guess, is the last question is this. It seems to me that you will now admit that you were wrong when you took the other position against Germaine Greer, right?
Oh, I knew I was wrong when I took it. It was simply a gymnastic exercise.
I see. So I'm glad to say then that it is a possibility that 10 years from now, from the vantage point of all of our achievements between now and then, that this proposition that the women's movement has been an abysmal
I agree. 10
failure
years from now,
may in fact have been a mistake. 10 years from now, the movement may be
reformed. All right. Thank you very much.
Yeah, that didn't happen.
Now it's Ariana Huffington's turn to be interrogated by the opposition team. Camille Paglia is itching to ask a question.
Ariana, you gave a litany of the cultural ills in America at the present time, most of which I think we would not disagree with. You spoke of a rising crime rate or anxiety over crime, an excessive divorce rate, and so on. Why do you blame this on the women's movement per se? Would it not make more sense to look to broader social and economic changes, perhaps of 200 years in length, from the agricultural era into industrialization, from a manufacturing-based economy into a service sector economy, and so on?
I'm not blaming it on the women's movement. The women's movement is only a contributing factor. Most important, though, is the fact that the women's movement has nothing important to say about those problems. Take the important question of rebuilding our communities. You mentioned it as something very important. Take the important question of revitalizing our values. The women's movement is totally silent on these issues unless it is hostile towards them. There are constant writings, not to mention speeches, on the fact that volunteerism is part of the past, that it's part of the way women used to be, when they didn't have important 9-to-5 jobs, and they had to go out and volunteer and do charity work. All that is denigrated. And yet again and again you see that the only way to rebuild communities is to recognize that problems are local and they are going to have local solutions only when the whole community comes together and when everybody, men and women, give of themselves beyond their own self-centered existence. In all this, the movement has nothing important to say.
Catherine Colbert.
Don't you think it's a little...
Now, notice how there's no applause, nothing. But I mean, I think she's turned 180 degrees in the opposite direction from what she's saying here. Because I perceive the Huffington Post to be, quasi-feminist, but that's just my opinion. But I think she's right to a certain extent, and I think that Polya asked her a good question, because I don't think that the breakdown of the family is only due to the fact of the women's movement. I don't. I think that there's a whole host of factors that have contributed towards the breakup of the family, in particular, city life, and the incorporation or interpolation of women into the workforce. That has broken up the family, I think. Moving away from agricultural communities, local, small and localized communities, to these large metroplexes. And I think that that's kind of like what has started to unravel the family. Okay? But they definitely are not helping. And one of their goals, their avowed premises, some of these women, is to destroy the family because they perceive the family as the seat of oppression. I mean, I'll do a show on this and show you the feminists who want to destroy the family. And I mean, it's their goal to do so. And I think you saw this with BLM, because if you looked at the literature that they had on their website prior to Donald Trump issuing the Race and Sex Stereotyping Act, I call it the Malleus Maleficarum. But until that time, they basically perceived the family as women and children. Men were not necessarily a component of the family. Now, it's necessary to have men to make children, but it's not necessary to have men around in the context of the family. And that's what we have a problem with. Shout out to Barry Little. Appreciate you, bro. Shout out to Rob Sawyer. And also shout out again to Mr. Heat and Rasheed Barnes. I appreciate y'all. I want to read their statements now so that, I can get it in and respond. Rob Sawyer says they've bitten off more than they can chew, and now it's coming to a head. It's getting so bad that the younger generations are picking video games over women. And that's the truth. Because what is in it for men now? There's nothing that men receive for this other than women asserting, what do you get me? Like, how is that a prize? How is a man receiving an attitude, a responsibility, a bill, and a headache associated with narcissism, aggression, and overt disrespect? How is that a net gain for men? How? I'm just asking the question. If there are any women who just so happen to hear this show, how is that something that is beneficial to a man? And when women are asked the question, well, what do you bring to the table? Well, me. You got a hot woman. You got me. Well, what can you do? Like, who are you? And men don't even have any standards anymore, because they're not even taught any standards, because most of them are raised in the context of women-centered families. And their mothers are not teaching them what women should be doing for them, or what they should look for as red flags in the context of relationships. Can you imagine that women would have an allegiance to all women above and beyond their own offspring? I just don't understand that. So you mean you care more about all women as an idea, a concept, this sisterhood, than you actually do your own child and what he deserves in the world? I want women to explain that to me, 'cause I don't get it. But I'm going to keep pushing.
Exaggerated to believe that the women's movement has not used volunteers to run institutions that we've built over the last 20 years.
And by the way, what she just said is there are women who are volunteering. So women are volunteering for battered women's shelters and, other charity services for women. Now, what disturbs me about this is that women are not the only people who, from time to time, are in need of help. Other people in this culture and in this society are in need, not deserving of, but they're in need of help. How could it be that you would dedicate everything to one demographic to the neglect of others because you've got this idea, put forth in your head that women are suffering more? Because I'm a woman, I'm just only going to help women. Imagine if men acted that way. Imagine if men held that position and acted on it firmly. Just imagine what the world would be like if men said, we're only helping men. We're not helping anybody but men. That's ridiculous, man. And look, men used to go to work to give to their families, to provide sustenance and the things that their families needed and wanted. Women don't have those kind of obligations. They don't have that sense of duty at all. Not to a man. You ever heard of a woman saying, I'm going to work for my husband? Ever. I don't know if I've ever heard that out of the mouth of a woman. I don't know if I've ever heard that. I'm going to work so I can support my husband. Come on, man. 3M says, what is the name of the debate? Okay, so just to catch you up, 3M, this is number 4, the 4th reaction video I'm doing on a debate from Bill Buckley's Firing Line, which is a show that was on the air for quite a bit of time. Okay, and this is called, Has the Women's Movement Been a Disaster? So this is what this is. Okay, so let me keep pushing.
This is not the point I'm making.
Thousands of women in this country are volunteering daily in rape crisis centers, in battered women's shelters, in homes in orphanages. My God, the new place. We do lots of wonderful work, and I think that it is absolutely naive to believe, or you haven't left California in a long time, to believe that the rest of us are not contributing to our society in lots of different ways. The point is it not, that we have the ability not only to do volunteer work, but also to work or to go to school or to function as equal
what I
to society.
said is very different. I would like you really to hear it because it's very important. What I said is that the women's movement has constantly looked to government, especially to Washington and federal government, to provide solutions. All the examples given here had to do with the Family Leave Act, with what Washington and the federal government did for child care. And what I'm saying is that the solutions are not going to be found there. The solutions are going to be found in our neighborhoods, in our communities, when all of us reach out and find ways to solve these major social problems.
I find...
Okay, she got some applause there. And look, here's the deal. So what ends up happening is you get state intervention into problems associated with conflict between family members. So the police come, the state comes, judges come, people from, children and protective services come. They all come and they intervene like ministers in the context of your private family life. And they only do so to benefit or help women under the premise that women are the only victims here. That's problematic. And they get resources and funding from the government. There's something called VAWA, the Violence Against Women Act. It used to be called, I think, something, I don't want to misspeak, but roughly speaking, it was the Family Violence Act. Now it's Violence Against Women Act. They just cut men out of the picture, schematically. That's problematic. And shout out to Mr. Heath for holding me down. Thank you, Mr. Ross, for the donation. I appreciate that. And if y'all leave a super chat comment, I'll make sure to bring it up as the debate goes on. But and also, Mr. Heath, thank you for getting me straight with the title. All right? Let me keep it pushing.
With your somehow evasion of the reality of experience, I have been, am, and will be a part of the women's movement. I am a spokesperson.
Many of them don't like you. You know that. Many of them have spoken angrily against you.
Helping the women's movement and the thought of the women's movement and feminism evolve, and I apply it to new questions. And I happen to believe today, and have said so in all my lectures and so on, that a new vision of community that transcends polarization is the next stage. But
Boy, I'm waiting for that stage to arrive, because we sure are not there. We're not there by any stretch of the imagination. We're not even close. The extremists are digging deeper. They're making more claims about their victimhood status. That's what's occurring. Now it's being weaponized against men who don't even have any institutional power. We're talking about black men. This is, I don't know what to say. I'm speechless. And there will never be an end to this, I don't think, until men actually stand up and say enough is enough. You've gone too far. And to tell them no, it's done. It's over with. All of these extreme claims have to be counterbalanced with empirical facts. And yeah, okay, so these are a few women's experiences. But men also have experiences. We have experiences. We have pain. We have troubles. We have obstacles and roadblocks, just like y'all have. They might not be exactly the same, but we have them as well. And men are committing suicide over the kind of things that are being done to them. But, I digress, man. And the funny thing is, you could be a founding mother of the feminist movement, and these radicals will shout the old architects of the movement down. They'll shut them down and tell them to be quiet and come after and attack them with cancel culture. I mean, this intolerance, and to me, it's slave morality is what it is. And yes, so there's a guy named Black Wall Street who sent me an email, and to some degree, I agree with him. Like, black people are part, in our civil rights struggles and our struggles to not have to deal with racism, we've helped create this monster. And, but one thing I will say about the civil rights leaders of the past, they were at least willing to have a conversation, to talk and discuss, to engage in discourse with white folks. They don't want to do any of that. They just shut you down and call you a misogynist and tell you you're a woman hater, or you're a homophobic. Like it's almost as if, you're being called a white person being called a racist. At some point, you got to say, man, like, so what? Okay, if that's what you want to call me, that's what I am then. So now what? And again, all they're going to do is push more and more people to the right. And when it surfaces up and bubbles up, it's going to get extreme. You're going to get extreme on the right. And when that begins to happen and these men stop giving a shit, the process has already begun. And I don't think that there's any way to turn back. And I just want to amplify it. I want to crank up the speed. That's just me. I want to crank up the speed so that more men don't have to suffer from falsity of truth, from canards. But let me keep pushing, man.
I want you to be honest about your own experience. You were the first woman head of the Cambridge Union. And
actually, I was the third.
You were the first woman head of the Cambridge Union.
I was not.
In the 1970s, I believe. And you wouldn't have been the head of the Cambridge Union and wouldn't have had that easy route to a reputation that you got thereby if there had not been a women's movement. Furthermore,
now I want you to notice the cognitive dissonance in this audience. This woman is saying, look, I wasn't the first president of the student union or whatever the case may be, whatever body she mentioned. I wasn't the first. I was the third. She didn't listen because she's high off the fact that she wrote a book that helped push forward this, second wave of feminism. So she's feeling herself. So much so that she will not even regard the fact that this woman was not the first president of the Cambridge Student Union or the, whatever body it is. I can't recall. She's not even the first, but she's going to make her the first in order to gain some sort of credibility or to give herself, some sort of, contribution to her being able to be in a position like that. That's cognitive dissonance. That's just a denial of a fact. But, it is what it is. Let me keep pushing.
We're running out of time. Now I have a question. The question is this. If you think politics, legislation, government is so useless, why did you let your husband spend $80 million to try to buy a...
Now, it's important that you understand what she just said there. Let me put a bomb out there for this. This woman just said, this woman who's powerless, this woman who is controlled and dominated by patriarchs, just told the truth. A Freudian slip, as it were. That why did you allow your husband to spend money doing something he wanted to do? Why did you allow him? She's letting you know the influence and the power that women have over the decisions that men make. Now, if you tell a woman, why are you spending money on this? The first thing she's going to do is point out to, you're trying to control me. You're trying to tell me what to do. That's not right. Has a woman ever told you in a relationship, I don't want you to spend money on this. I don't want you to buy that. I want you to buy this. You're spending too much money on that. You don't need that. We need to do this. We need to do that. And as soon as you tell them something about their money, the first thing they got is, you can't tell me what to do with my money. It's not fair. That's crazy to me. But this is where we are. This is where we are.
We'll give you 30, we're out of time, but I'm going to give you 30 seconds to answer that. Yeah, go ahead. Hold on, we're running out of... Take a few seconds and answer that, even though we're out of time.
Let me start by correcting all the inaccuracies in your statements. First of all, I was not the first woman president of the Cambridge Union, I was the third. And the first woman president of the Cambridge Union was there before the Feminine Mystique was written. And since you called yourself the mother of the movement, we are taking that as the beginning of the movement to also answer your question, Karen, about my ignorance of the women's movement in relation to voting rights. The second point is that
And this is important because earlier, the judge, the woman who was arguing in this particular segment of this debate that I'm showing now, the judge who basically argued that she didn't know about the women's movement because she asked the question about what's the relevancy to this women's movement with my ability to vote. And then, she went to give her some sort of demeaning lecture about the connection between the suffragette movement and her ability to, to be able to exercise the franchise, whatever the case. But anyway, these women are making it out to be the case that they are the ones who provided the context in which women could live a more fruitful and abundant life. They're like Christ-like figures in their own minds. But, I digress, man. Let me get back to it.
My husband is free to spend his money the way he wants. He doesn't ask me.
Okay, thank you.
Let me continue. My husband could have spent $30 million, not $80 million, incidentally, another minor inaccuracy of $50 million in your calculations. He could have spent $30 million building a boat or buying a bad Picasso. Instead, he chose to spend it promoting some major ideas of importance to the whole country, including volunteerism, including replacing the welfare state, including things that I'm sure you don't like, just judging by your expression.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Ariana.
Now, she letting you know that they got big money, man. I don't know what kind of money Betty Friedan's got, but I'm pretty sure it's more than the average black family. I can guarantee you that. That's just a fact. Okay, so these are women who are already born in privileged family environments and social circles and networks. And their ideas have taken root in environments in which they really don't belong. But, I digress. Let me keep pushing, man.
It's your turn to be subjected to questioning from the opposition, from the affirmative team. Who wants to start? Go ahead, Professor Fox Genovese.
Yes, I would like to ask Camille Paglia what she thinks of the Gender Equity in Education Act.
Well, I'm known for my opposition to this kind of Rube Goldberg contraption. I'm an equal opportunity feminist. I do not believe in these enormous bureaucratic special protections for women. I feel that particular act is reactionary. But
take 15 seconds and tell us what it is.
No, she asked the question, let her define it. How
do you know you're against it if you can't define it?
I know I'm against it. No, but what I would want to say, and this has been a theme running through a lot of the comments from this side, is that again I must stress, all right, that there's a distorted voice. It appears in feminism that is overemphasized by the media. So the media has given too much attention to the present leaders of the movement who have promoted that particular act. The media does not give any voice, does not allow the kind of access to the talk shows and so on of people who would oppose that act. So again, I have to say,
when do leaders of the women's movement ever challenge the media? When does someone defending abortion ever bring someone from a pro-life feminist to a meeting with her? Why is it that most feminist groups will not tolerate pro-life feminists and will not allow them to use the word?
No.
You can't blame the media.
No, I speak as an expert in mass media. I teach mass media. This is one of my areas of expertise. For 20 years, dissident feminists like me have struggled to get heard. All right, there's unholy marriage in this country between the liberal media in the East Coast, all right, in the Northeast, and these often self-appointed leaders of the movement. History will show that the moment the movement started moving away from Betty Friedan, you started getting problems. I loved Gloria Steinem in the beginning, okay, but very soon she too became a prisoner of that cultural elite on the East Coast. We've got to go back to basics again. I agree with Betty Friedan on a lot of different issues, and I still feel that her principles actually speak to every single thing that has been said on the opposite side, okay? Her original writings speak to.
Okay, Helen.
Well, right now, I can tell you this. The liberal media from the East, the West, it don't matter what coast. I mean, right now, this is full-blown steroids. They are Super Saiyan with this shit right now. I mean, they are like Thanos with the Infinity Glove with all the stones right now. And they're running the table. And they got the deck, and the dealer is making sure that the hands are, basically going in their favor. And who suffers the most from all of this? Your black ass. It's just the truth, man. So let me keep pushing.
Alvarez, or no, Mr. Buckley.
Ms. Paglia, in your rather interesting, exciting book, A Vamp and Tramp, you have an essay in which you describe the big freeze on you by the women's movement, and incidentally also by the gay and lesbians who don't review your books even. At what point would you think that the leadership was excluding you, and that therefore you should seek another different banner to march under?
The leadership has been excluding me for 20 years. The point is there are many women like me. We go all the way back to the late 60s. I belong to a kind of extinct strain.
There are not many women like you.
Oh, no, I belong to a kind of extinct strain of a kind of a streetwise, street-smart feminism. We believe in personal responsibility and so on. Now, another thing, the women's studies programs, okay? A lot of crap is coming out of them. I believe the whole thing should be demolished, all right?
Man, I ain't gonna say it should be demolished, but some temperance has to be placed there. So I give her a shout out for that one. And I see a comment, because I'm looking at the comment section while I'm doing this. And Money Moore says she's talking like it's a game. Essentially, it is. Like, if you don't say what we want you to say, if you don't utilize the talking points we want you to utilize, we're going to cancel you. And like, these women are angry, and they have an ideology, and anybody will be damned if they don't accept and agree to all of their talking points. That's like fascism to me, man. That's what that is to me. Well, you have to believe what I believe. You have to agree with my talking points. Otherwise, I'm going to cut you off. That's oppression. That is systemic oppression. It just is what it is. At some point, they're going to have to answer for this. Because they're creating, there was an article, again, I told you, the Harper's article where they were beginning to talk about intolerance from the left. But this is this politically correct cancel culture, and a lot of it is just predicated upon canards. And eventually this stuff, it's going to be exposed. The gaslighting, the shaming, the name calling, the guilting, it's going to be exposed at some point. Okay? But hey, the biggest problem with the academy is that the women who are professors there are not like pushing back or saying anything or exposing, any of the excesses themselves. Because they're participants in it, a lot of these women. Okay? Not all of them, but a lot of them. Because I know some cool women who consider themselves to be feminists. Okay? I'm just putting that out there. I can have a conversation with them and speak to them in the same way I'm talking to you on this show right now. Because I don't bite my tongue when I talk to them. I'm like, man, look, I don't know what y'all feel about white guys, but the shit, like all of this shit rolls downhill and it falls squarely on our shoulders. And it's like we got to clean the stable like Hercules based upon the untruths that are being propagated by your people. You know how we get treated in this culture. But when you place women's concerns above everybody else's just in virtue of the fact that they're women without taking into account their class, their wealth, their networking, and their cultural capital, you do a disservice to men who don't have a pot to piss in or a window to throw it out of. And who have mothers who raise them to be sheepish and to be, toady and obsequious. This becomes problematic. But I digress, man. I'm moving too far away from the path. Let me get back on it. And I'm gonna have to cut it off. I can't show it all right now because if I do, because I got like 30 more minutes of the video to show, but I don't want to revisit this anymore. I'm ready to move to the next subject that I have to talk about, which I'll talk about tomorrow, which incidentally ties into this because black men die and then women claim that some injustice occurs because what? Black lesbian women don't get enough attention or black trans women don't get enough attention. But how can it be that black men are getting killed and murdered extrajudicially in the street and black women need some help? I just don't understand it, man. And these women aren't even helping the fucking families of the people who died. They ain't helping them at all. I mean, these women, like from BLM, they collected millions of dollars, man. Millions. They got racks on racks on racks for black men being dead or getting shot and killed. Sometimes even boys, but not even 21-year-olds. That's blood money, man. That's blood money. And no other group of people would tolerate this. And we sit back stupefied. We don't even know what to say. But the families are beginning to speak out now. Because it's ridiculous, man. They come and as interlopers in a social movement. The media listens to them and appoints them, the so-called official leaders, and everybody starts giving money to them. To do what? To advance intersectional politics, which already leaves us out? Man, it's crazy, man. That's blood money. Let me keep pushing.
Do not confuse the women's studies program with the feminist movement. Okay, the feminist movement is much larger than those horrible women on campus. And I blame, not the women's movement, but rather the servility of the administrators on campus and the self-castration of our American faculties that have permitted the creation of those cells of non-feminist women, just fanatics, doctrinaire, Orwellian women who are indeed guilty of the perversion of language that you have so well spoken to.
I'll give her an amen for that one. That's all I can say. The university is some bullshit. I'm here to tell you. I know. Faculty members are not, the faculty used to run the university. They don't anymore. It used to be, okay, well, you're a faculty member for a bit of time, and then you move up and become an administrator. And it still works like that to some degree, but ultimately the power lied in the hands of the tenured faculty, not an administrative class. Now it's all the way different. It's like an administrative class has taken over the university system, and I'm just gonna be honest, man. Most of these professors, man, they some bitch-made motherfuckers, bro. I'm just keeping it 100, man. And they argue over petty, stupid shit, bro. The average faculty member at a college near you is a bitch-made motherfucker. I'm just keeping it 100, man. I know from experience, but let me keep pushing.
I think you're off the hook with that.
Is that it?
Sure, thank you very much. Elizabeth Fox Genovese, it's your turn to converse with Betty Friedan. Betty Friedan, ascend the podium, please, and Elizabeth Fox Genovese. And Professor Fox Genovese starts.
So let me stop it here. So I see a brother that just, it's the one drop from Ametsia. Says, GG, speak on that 10 billion Goldman Sachs plans to give black women money motivated off the George Floyd murder. Exactly. That's what I'm talking about. That's why I say a black man getting killed is like the lottery now. For anybody who has an organization. And it becomes sensationalized in the media, you know a check is coming. More than likely, not for the community in which the injustice occurred. The money's going to be given to organizations handpicked by the media. And the media basically is governed, their activities are governed by corporations because they need the money. I said this yesterday, but I think it was on a private that I had with Dr. Johnson and BGS on the office hours. And let me explain it like this. When you watch a television program, if it's not a subscription service, okay? But if you're watching a television program on a cable network that runs syndicated television programs, the way that show makes money is off advertising. It's the same way with the radio, okay? The songs you hear get played to sell you products. That's it. That's the game. So the corporations get to dictate what is being shown on the media. Coca-Cola, Pepsi, Allstate, Budweiser, whatever it may be, Gillette, they sell products. So they get to dictate what is a show that they want to actually sponsor. If the show doesn't get ratings and it's not approved by the audience, then they don't give money to it and the show can't be produced anymore. All right? So this is this marriage between the media and corporations. But they do the same thing with politics and social movements. They are able to intervene on grassroots movements by dictating who the spokespersons are going to be by funding them. That's what they do, man. And that's what they did with BLM. Because I was there, man, at ground zero when the motherfucker was still smoking. I was there, man. But, you know, hey, I'm done with it. Let me keep pushing, man. And I'm going to do this for like 10 more minutes before they get to the abortion thing. But when they start talking about abortion, I'm cutting it off. All right? Because I'm an hour into it already. So let me get to the abortion part. And after that, I'm done.
Ms. Friedan, you went to Smith, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
How do you feel about single-sex education?
Well, I'm very torn. I got a wonderful education at Smith, as did Bill's sisters. We were there together. But I think...
Told you. Didn't I tell you? They know each other. Been knowing each other since youngsters. But I digress. And that's an affluent women's college, by the way. All right, so let me keep pushing.
That it is very important for, you know, I don't think separate is equal. And I think it is very important that women learn how to be full people in the full society. And I deplore some of this new stuff that says, oh, the girls can't speak up if they're in the class with boys, then something should be done about the professors to make them treat the girls with equal respect to boys. I think it is regressive to return to single-sex education as the only way that women can be taught to have a full voice in society and full self-confidence. On the other hand, freedom of choice is on education is a part of the American ethos.
And now, just how do you expect to give people full self-confidence, much less competence and independence, if the way you're going to handle the problem is to force the professors to behave one way or another? If you can't encourage people to internalize some sense of responsibility for themselves, aren't you facing problems? And if you go to telling professors how to behave at that level of micromanagement, are you not moving into a serious abridgment of the freedoms of society as a whole in order to make women come out more equal than they would
I'm not
if things
proposing
just
anything
took
of
their
that
course?
sort. I'm not proposing anything of that sort. If indeed there is a way that teachers, and I've seen these studies in other countries.
Let me tell you right now. Let me just be honest. Before you can get it, let me tell you what it takes for you to get a job at a university. All right? What happens is, first of all, you got to fill out an application that's like 50 to 60 pages long. I mean, it's called a dossier. So you send them your curriculum vitae, letters of reference, all the classes you've taught, a teaching statement, a research statement, and a diversity and inclusion statement. Every college is demanding this now. Explain to me how you are going to implement diversity and inclusion in your research and in the way that you teach and in the service that you're going to provide to the university, the department, the college that you're in, because the universities are split into different colleges. These are all standard operating procedures right now. So yes, it's enshrined into university policy at the current moment. And if you deviate from what you say in these statements, I mean, that's just the application process. Because then after that, you got a 15 to 30-minute interview to find out if you're going to make the next cut. Okay? Then after that, if you get invited, because it's hundreds, literally, sometimes 400-500 people applying for the same job. Real talk. Okay, so because I've been on committees where we're going to hire a new faculty member, man, it's a painful process. Then you bring them to campus and you interview them for an entire day, from the time they wake up till 8-9 in the evening. That's how so, and then they got to meet the dean of the college that they're going to be hired in. They got to meet the provost of the university. They got to meet all of the faculty and all of the students. And they have to answer questions about whether or not, they're going to implement diversity and inclusion measures in the way that they research, they teach, and provide service to the university. Yeah, that way. Let me keep pushing.
It's not just in the U.S. That the teachers, for instance, call on the boys more often. Then, as a part of the education of the teachers, then that kind of prejudice should be exposed. If indeed, as was the case in this country, black children were thought capable of nothing and therefore not given challenging assignments, then that kind of prejudice on the part of teachers needs to be dealt with educationally. I mean, we do progress, we do evolve, I think it is a marvelous thing that women are now admitted to the law schools and the professional schools, and frankly, I would like to see women admitted to the Catholic priesthood. I think that all of these educational opportunities are wonderful, and they're wonderful not only for the women themselves, but for the dimension of experience. Women are different from men, and I am a feminist that has never denied that. And I think that.
Well, damn, at least we can admit that shit. Damn. Because nowadays you got people who are actually arguing that there is nothing different between men and women other than the way that they are enculturated. And that epigenetically women are weaker than men because they've been educated in such a way as to be less strong than men. It has nothing to do with estrogen and testosterone. It has everything to do with enculturation. And it has nothing to do with what women choose. It has to do with what men choose. Really? But at least she's admitting there's a difference between men and women. God damn, today if you say that, you will get canceled. And by the way, man, look, anytime I teach a class, have taught a class, I let anybody speak, whether they are a fucking redneck conservative or whether or not they're a fucking trans woman. I let everybody talk. And I don't hold anything back. I don't give a damn if you a lesbian or a goddamn pro-black radical or a fucking redneck trucker. I don't give a damn who you are. I'm going to argue. I'm going to play devil's advocate to whatever position they come up with to see if they understand the weaknesses in their own, in their own ways that they think about things. I don't care who it is. You could be a black woman. You could be a Hispanic or a Latino woman. I don't give a shit. Speak whatever you got to speak. But I'm going to talk the way I talk. I'm not going to talk like a white guy because I don't do that. All right, I'm not going to try to make myself sound intelligent by using the vocal intonation of a white dude. I refuse to do it. But anyway, man, I've always prided myself in being, open enough to let anybody say what they got to say. But it has to work on their side too. They can't shut people off because the viewpoints being expressed don't fall in line with their value system. That's Orwellian, man. But it is what it is. Let me keep pushing. And I'm about to be done after this in a minute.
Different experience of women is necessary to have a full picture of history or of anything else. And you have made a contribution in that respect. And I want to ask you...
Good, and keep on it.
I want to ask you, how can you deny the importance of the contribution to history that you yourself have made? The study that you have done of the Southern women, and I can't claim I've read it all, but I've certainly read some of it. That wouldn't have been taken seriously 40 years ago.
Well, you give me an opportunity to make something very clear. I am not opposed to the women's movement you launched. What I am opposed to is what the women's movement is becoming.
But there is no the women's movement. There is, you can say the women's movement in lowercase, and that applies to all of the movement of women in this society. It applies to the caucuses that exist in academic associations. It applies to the networking that goes on in business. It applies to the different feminist organizations and to the League of Women Voters and the Junior League that are now, and AAUW that are now feminist in their orientation. But the women's movement applies to the whole of society, and the different voices that proclaim a kind of extreme version of feminism or political correctness. I am a feminist, but I am not politically correct. And I hate that kind of rigidity. I hate the attempt to make a single doctrine, a single party line, whether it's feminism or anything else, but feminism has got to have diversity.
Don't forget you're asking questions.
Let's see, what did I start to ask you?
That's all right. I can take that one as a question, because you talked earlier in your opening.
Well, I give her credit for that. I'll at least give her credit for that, which is not what we're receiving today. We're not getting that today. And the women of today I'm showing this because I'm studying in real time as we speak, I'm studying feminism. And it's important for us to study it and to know it like the back of our hand. So we can point out to those who declare themselves to be feminists that we have knowledge of the various forms of it and to know when they are moving out of bounds. We need to know 15 yards, penalty, personal foul, replay the second down. Yeah, we have to know. We have to know it better than them. That's just my viewpoint. But anyway, I'm going to keep pushing it and I'm going to be done.
Remarks about personhood and women's sense of themselves and the rest of it. And women's movement as a word is a little bit ambiguous because it does not capture only the change in women's situation and the importance of women's issues to our society. It's normally taken to be more or less synonymous with feminism. I would agree that the vast majority of women, and indeed men in this country, want fairness for women and regard women's issues as of the utmost importance. Yet the vast majority of women in this country say very firmly, feminism is not a story about my life.
No, they do not.
Yes, they do.
If you look at
Sorry, Ms. Fredette.
If you look at recent polls, you'll see that the vast majority of women identify with the women's movement for equality. And there are women that do not use the word feminist. And you find out why they don't use the word feminist, and you find two things. You find that they equate feminism with some of this anti-man kind of thing, which I don't agree with and have always spoken out against. My book, The Second Stage, and I was attacked for that. But we have to have these differences to evolve a larger truth. They also say I'm not a feminist, but because in the last 20 years of Reagan and Bush leading to Newt Gingrich, we have made words like liberalism, feminism, dirty words. So that's
Thank you very much. You're all Catherine Colbert and Helen Alvarez.
So look, guys, I'm going to shut it down here. That's not where I wanted to go. Let me come back in for a minute because I ain't mean to. Let me shut it down there, man. I didn't mean to shut off like that. Okay, that was a mistake, technical difficulty. But it's important for us to know this, that the original architects of second wave feminism have a problem with the extremity of radical feminism, which is popular now, which is excessive, oftentimes silly, oftentimes based on canards. We got to put an end to it. And it's time for men to say, man, fuck that, man. Fuck that. You don't have to accept every talking point that they have. A lot of these women are dogmatic. They don't even know because they haven't even read feminist philosophy. All they know is what works for them. They're using it as a weapon without really actually understanding all of the thoughts and the ideas contained therein. But I don't move like that. Like if I'm going to speak about something, I'm going to know what it is. I'm going to do my research and find out what it actually is and what version of it I'm getting. Nowadays, all I can say is we got a lot of man-hating feminist thinking going on right now. That's just what we got. I'm just keeping it 100. And you got to be able to separate the wheat from the chaff to know what the equity feminists are talking about and to be able to separate that from, some of these radical claims that are put out here in the public sphere about who we are. It's a lot of man-hating stuff, and they're admitting it. It's a lot of man-hating going on. Then you got brothers. I can't even call them brothers because they're not brothers to me. You got a lot of men who are black who are using the same talking points of these extreme feminists to call out the behavior of black men that's not even a real fucking thing. It's not even real. And they want you to feel guilty about it. They want to shame you about it. They want to gaslight you about it. This is why I'm studying ideas and I discuss these ideas instead of just talking about various people. Because I want to get to the root of the problem. I don't have time to talk about miscellaneous people. I want to talk about the ideas that motivate the people. And this is what I'm here to do. If you enjoy the content, support the channel. I want to continue to do more like this. But what I don't want to do is, see the manosphere be wasted by egoism, egotism, and enmity between the men here. I'm just getting disgusted with it, man. And it's sensational for some reason. It's like I don't want to tune in to love and hip hop, man, when I'm on the manosphere. When I'm on the manosphere shit, I don't want to tune in to another dude talking about another dude. Or to a dude talking about how another dude did him wrong. I don't have time for that bullshit, man. I didn't come here for the young and the restless shit. I came here for justice, bruh. That's what I came here for. So I'll holler at y'all later, man. Peace out, man. Now I can end this joint. Peace. Green Gorilla Beat.